this new relief would actually be deposited and sent to low-income households. President Biden said today that he wants to decide soon whether to support a temporary pause in the federal gasoline tax and is nearing a decision on student loan relief, as he looks to ease the burden of high prices on Americans. And when asked whether he was considering backing a gas tax holiday, Joe Biden told reporters, "I hope I have a decision based on the data. I'm looking for that by the end of the week." Now, such a pause in the 18.3% per gallon federal tax would require Congress to act, and there has been little traction among lawmakers on the idea so far. The Biden administration is eager to find areas of relief for American consumers contending with skyrocketing gas prices as the summer begins. Biden also made clear that he is also weighing whether to back sending Americans gas rebate cards, and Biden stated that's part of the whole operation. Now, the array of options currently up for discussion at the White House reflects the urgency behind the scenes to come up with ways to alleviate soaring costs for Americans. The president has implored his team to search for areas where he has to take action to reduce financial burdens as the price of gas and food soars. The White House has previously downplayed the prospect of sending gas rebate cards directly to Americans because the program will be difficult to administer. High prices and the prospect of a recession are looming over Biden's presidency, threatening Democrats' political prospects in November's midterm elections. And Biden has also downplayed the risk of a recession as the Federal Reserve raises interest rates in an attempt to tame inflation. Lawmakers and governors have floated the notion of a gas tax holiday, encouraging Biden to get behind the idea. The U.S. Treasury and Energy Secretaries each said it is a worthy option. The administration's approach to supporting a suspension of the federal gas tax reflects concerns among some Democrats that it may not provide some significant relief, particularly if retailers raise the base price per gallon. Now, as it happens, Biden told reporters a day that he'd speak to Larry Summers, a former Treasury Secretary, who has criticized the administration for its approach to inflation and has warned a recession is now inevitable.
Down from the average pace seen earlier in the year, but still robust. Improvements in labor market conditions have been widespread, including for workers at the lower end of the wage distribution, as well as for African Americans and Hispanics. A box in the June Monetary Policy Report discusses developments in employment and earnings across all major demographic groups. Labor demand is very strong, while labor supply remains subdued, with the labor force participation rate little changed since January. The Fed's monetary policy actions are guided by our mandate to promote maximum employment and stable prices for the American people. My colleagues and I are acutely aware that high inflation poses significant hardship, especially on those least able to meet the higher costs of essentials like food, housing, and transportation. We are highly attentive to the risks that high inflation poses to both sides of our mandate, and we're strongly committed to returning inflation to our 2% objective. Against the backdrop of the rapidly evolving economic environment, our policy has been adapting, and it will continue to do so. With inflation well above our longer-run goal of 2% and an extremely tight labor market, we raised the target range for the federal funds rate at each of our past 3 meetings, resulting in a 1.5 percentage point increase in the target range so far this year. The committee reiterated that it anticipates that ongoing increases in the target range will be appropriate. In May, we announced plans for reducing the size of our balance sheet, and shortly thereafter began the process of significantly reducing our securities holdings. Financial conditions have been tightening since last fall and have now tightened significantly, reflecting both policy actions that we have already taken, as well as anticipated actions. Over coming months, we'll be looking for compelling evidence that inflation is moving down, consistent with inflation returning to 2%. We anticipate that ongoing rate increases will be appropriate. The pace of those changes will continue to depend on the incoming data and the evolving outlook for the economy. We will make our decisions meeting by meeting, and will continue to communicate our thinking as clearly as possible. Our overarching focus is using our tools to bring inflation back down to our 2% goal and to keep longer-term inflation expectations well anchored. Making appropriate monetary policy in this uncertain environment requires a